So this is the other equipment that we're going to be heavily relied on, which is called a signal generator, or also known as a function generator. For short, we're going to call it signal generator or a SIGGEN. And this is essentially our source of power. We're going to provide a voltage potential throughout our circuits and all the elements that are on the Pasco board that I showed in the previous screencasts. So the moment we plugged it in, the moment we turn this on, we see this menu, and I'm going to approach the camera a little bit. So this is what you see. That's the screen that comes up the moment you turn it on from this switch. What the first part of this lab 3, which is going to be the ohmic behavior, we're going to deal mostly with DC, the direct current. So the first step that we need to take is press this button that says waveform. Press it once, and then with the right knob, which says voltage, this knob, the menu, we're going to go down where it says DC, as you can see over here, and then you're going to press this OK, the right, again, voltage, the knob, and then it's going to wait for our input again with the same switch, the voltage switch. We're going to give it as many volts the manual dictates or tells us to do. Of course, down here, you're going to see, right now it's not connected to anything. As you can see, there are no cables going anywhere, so it's just a dummy box sitting there. It's not providing any current. We're going to see that in action in one of the next screencasts, but this is how you change the voltage. This is how you change the voltage for DC. And one of the questions that I think is lab 4, if I'm not mistaken, is going to also ask you to change that to give a particular offset. So you press menu, this, and you see this new menu coming up, and you're going to give it, when you're instructed to do so, when you're instructed to give it an offset, then you're going to press again the voltage, and I think the offset should be about 3 volts or whatever value it is, and just again press OK, and you're done with this part. So again, this is a signal generator that will be providing DC and AC. I just show you the menu that when you provide a DC voltage, again, when you connect it to resistors and capacitors and whatnot, you're going to see a value of current here, depending on what resistor you loaded with and so forth. But I'm just trying to guide you through the basic menu of the SIGGEN. And when you're instructed to provide with AC, we just press this button, the waveform, once more, and now we're going to give it either a square wave, or a sine wave. They're both, the sine and the square waves are supposed to be AC current instead of DC. Again, the major difference between the two, the DC is just one constant value. Let me go back and show you a quick way to recognize this. The DC displays just a straight line here, which means 3 volts are constant throughout time, doesn't change. But when you go back to the AC menu and say you press sine, you immediately see that this turns into a sine waveform. And now you have several options, right? You can play with the voltage as we played, and we regulated that, with the DC. We inputted 3 volts. We inputted 3 volts. Of course, again, the current doesn't say anything here because it's not connected to anything. And the other is the frequency, something that we did not have as an option in DC, simply because the DC does not vary with respect to time. Now the frequency here, we can go up and down, but say we want to go to, the default value is 1000. hertz. Hertz are the units for frequency, right? So it's 1 over second, second to the negative 1. So if you quickly would like to go to 100, say, hertz, which many of the exercises that we're going to cover in the lab pertain to several values, instead of going down every 1 hertz, the fastest way is push this. This is going to be changing the decimal value, so this is the second value, so we can quickly go down to 100 hertz, or even lower if you see, if you want to go, say, down to 10 hertz, right? So you play with this value, and say if you want to go, I don't know, to 510 or 610. So you play with this, you use this switch here to change the digits that you're going to be using and how many digits you want. You can go as high as several. I think it's, I'm not sure what the highest value is. I think it's 150 kilohertz or 150,000 hertz, as you can see. When we're using the AC, we will not be using the offset that it says here. See that it's still the option from the previous. So you just go again to menu, and you make the offset. You make it 0, and we're done. Waveform, sine, and now we have our frequency, any frequency you want to provide, depending on the problem that we're dealing with. Let's put it back to, I don't know, 610. You can give it as much voltage as you can, as you want, or as much voltage as the problem requires. Again, this is the switch for the voltage. This is the switch for the frequency. And that's all you need to know at this point. These are the main functions that we're going to be using from the SIGGEN.